I try to go out into nature as much as is possible, for a couple of main reasons. One being it's, well, beautiful. Another is the fresh air and the exercise and whatnot, but the main reason is that it's where I feel the most comfortable, which is to say that I feel the least uncomfortable. Because I'm basically always uncomfortable. I suffer a lot of anxiety and a lot of just general bodily, physical discomfort. I should preface what I'm saying here by saying that I'm deeply suspicious and skeptical of diagnostic psychiatry. It's all well and good to be able to typify disorders and group people and characterize different sets of symptoms and then be able to devise treatments for that sort of thing, but I'm more interested in the notion of neurodivergence, the idea that we're all different. Like we all have different psychologies, different ways of thinking, different. Well, obviously we're physically different, so of course our mental function is different as well. Wind. Hopefully the microphone's not picking up too much of the wind. I have a lot of the symptoms that might be characterized of an autism spectrum disorder and also, well, ADHD. Mostly the sensory aspects of it. I have always been extremely hypersensitive in all of my senses, auditory, visual, and especially tactile. I am constantly fidgeting and everything is uncomfortable all the time. It's very difficult for me to block out sensations. So whether it be a tag on the back of my neck or some sound that I'm hearing, that's a bullfrog you're hearing if you're hearing it, or any number of other things. And you may notice that my eyes are just constantly dodging around, much more than it seems most people's are. And I'm basically just taking in information all the time, and it gets to be quite overwhelming. Now, of course, the human mind there's a lot of abstractions that takes place when you're perceiving the world. You're not really seeing the world as it is. You couldn't be seeing the world as it is because you have very limited senses. There's only 3 colors of color receptors in your eyes, and your ears can only hear certain frequencies. And even if you were taking in all that information, your brain wouldn't be fast enough to be able to process it all. So there's a lot of just like general abstraction taking place. Instead of looking over there and seeing all the aspects of that tree over there, all the different colors of light, I just see it and I think, oh, tree. There's leaves on it and there's branches and stuff. And so the idea of a tree is what I'm seeing rather than the tree itself. I take in a lot of information, and so there's a lot to be seen, which gets very distracting, and this is why the characteristics of ADHD show up. Of course, everybody's got a little bit of characteristics of autism spectrum disorder or ADHD or whatever, but certain people are definitely more characteristic of those conditions. Is this a problem? Is there something wrong with these conditions? Certainly it can be debilitating. Like I oftentimes find myself in extreme discomfort. I oftentimes am disabled from getting things done. The characteristics of ADHD leave me with a lot of executive dysfunction. Just trying to get to the forest here, like I intended to leave, I'd say about 2 hours before I actually left. And it was just this constant cycle of like, oh, well, I need to do this before I do that, and I need to do that before I do that. What was I doing in the first place? I don't remember. Okay, I need to go, I'm trying to get to the forest, and yeah, it's punishing, because I try to do a lot of things that require concentration and linear thinking, writing essays, crap like that, and that's hard when I'm constantly bouncing from thing to thing and constantly being inundated by different sensory information that diverts me from what it is that I'm trying to do. All this being said, that the urban environment is hell. Just hell. I'm out here in the forest and I hear birds and I hear the whoosh of the waves over there. There's the occasional breeze, occasional frogs, some splooshing. Other than that, it's quite pleasant. There's silence sometimes, and that lets me think clearly. I everything's so much easier out here. Whereas when I'm in the city, when I'm in my apartment, oftentimes, I'm just being inundated by things. There's leaf blowers outside, there's dudes doing construction nearby, there's cars, loud cars, motorcycles, etc. driving by. My fridge turns on every hour or so and makes a noise, and the internet is just full of noise. Not just auditory noise, but like intellectual noise. All the advertisings, all the just visually stimulating elements, because the modern informational environment, TV, radio, social media, etc. included, it's all designed as an attention economy, because all these things are funded by advertising, which means that all of the programming that's being thrown at you is designed to maximally capture your attention. And if already one struggles with focusing one's attention, one is extremely vulnerable to such things. This is why I work so hard to block out so much of that stuff. But some of it can't be escaped, because the urban environment, the suburban environment, every aspect of the built environment is suffused with this attention-grabbing aesthetic to it. And a lot of the aesthetic of the built environment is just downright unpleasant. The disgustingness of the downtown environment sometimes, just the like sharp edges and refuse and it's gray and why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we build a world that's aesthetically unpleasant? And I have to presume that it's because most people aren't paying attention to this, especially not the people that are designing these things. Like I have to pay attention to these things. I can't help it. I can't block it out. I can't ignore it. People often tell me, well, just ignore it. Just pay attention to something else. I can't. Like I can feel my wristwatch right now, even though it's been on there all day and I wear it basically every day. I can feel my wristwatch. I can feel my clothing. I can feel every aspect of what I'm wearing. I can see everything around me. I can hear everything around me, and I can't block it out. And even if some people claim that they can, I don't think that you really can. I don't think anybody really can block out all sensory stimulation. We often pursue anesthetics in order to be able to tolerate the sensations that we feel, and I certainly love me some anesthetics. But by anesthetic, I don't just mean like painkillers, like Tylenol or whatever. I mean like anything can act as an anesthetic, whether that be watching TV programs that absorb all of your attention so you can't pay attention to anything else, or like a beer or a joint or anything else like that. Anesthetics are a necessary part of human living in the modern world. And I don't think that was necessarily as much the case in the pre-modern world. And for those lucky enough to be able to escape the urban environment, I don't think it's quite as necessary either. I, for example, don't really feel the need to anesthetize right now. Just out in the forest, having an okay day. I think humanity would be better off altogether if we recognized the totality of the sensory environment that we find ourselves in. Because it's not just the neurodivergent among us, it's not just the folks that have extremely heightened senses, it's everybody. I think we're all feeling it, and the effects of this, the long-term mass-scale effects of living in an environment that is so overwhelming so much of the time, is that we can't think straight. We can't reason properly. We can't have democratic thought. We can't improve ourselves because we're just so busy being overwhelmed. I value the fact that I have the privilege and the opportunity to be able to get out into nature and hear the quiet, hear myself think sometimes. I wish I lived in a situation where that was more often the case. And I wish more people had the opportunity to do what I'm doing now. because I feel so much better. Anyway, I try and make videos daily. Hopefully I get back to it. If you enjoyed this content, algorithmic stuff. And thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.